So at the UFO convention, this was again the story of a guy who's from Hayward and he had a childhood experience. And you were
Mhm.
saying he and his parents had lost their house recently, and they're living with a neighbor. So he was going on a walk outside with that friend,
Mhm.
neighbor friend, and it was a really beautiful night outside, and they can see the clouds and everything.
Mhm. Yeah, so they had just started their walk and um I don't know like what maybe he was still looking at the clouds because he said they were very beautiful, but he said he looked up at the clouds and uh they started like swirling in a clockwise direction and
Mm,
he thought to himself like this isn't right. Like it started swirling
mm,
and then like I think the cloud kind of like disappeared and he saw like the bottom of like what looks like a UFO. Um
mm,
and he said that there were like multicolored lights flashing like
mm,
just all sorts of colors. And he said what he felt was strange was he thought like it was reacting to his thoughts because he said that he thought to himself that these lights don't look right and that one of the blue lights looked like that looks like it was like out of order or something.
mm,
And yeah, he said he was thinking to himself like if this is an alien craft, like why are the lights messed up? Like they're more advanced VR
mm,
and stuff.
mm,
And he says he feels like his thoughts were being read, and then suddenly like the lights started kind of flashing in a way that made that more sense.
mm,
Like he said almost like this thing was showing off to him or something. Like
mm,
he kind of said he kind of laughed at that part because he kind of finds it funny. But um he says that's all he kind of remembered before he and presumably his friend like blacked out. And yeah, so they black out and then um yeah, I don't know, we wouldn't know how much time passed that or anything, but they blacked out and then he comes to again, but this time he's like further down the street and he feels like he's still looking up at the whatever this thing was. And he said he feels paralyzed, like he can't move from where he's standing, and that all he can do is just kind of stand straight up and look. Um, so yeah, it's like that for a few moments, and then he said like that the in the blink of an eye, like that craft suddenly like darts way off into the Hayward Hills.
mm,
And he said it moved so fast, like it like nothing that he knows like
mm,
that's even possible with like what we have. And
mm,
yeah, he just can't really like you can't really comprehend the speed, he says.
mm,
Because he says like that if you were to like blink, it would look like it just disappeared. But he was somehow able to like just see it dart off into
mm,
the Hayward Hills.
mhm,
So once that happens, he's able to move again, and his friend is next to him. And he said, like, and he asked his friend, like, did you see what I just saw? And then his friend was like, yeah, it must be a UFO. Um, but then, like, they walked back, they quickly go back to, like, another friend's house, and his friends are, like, kind of out on the porch, and he tells them what happened, and the friends kind of laugh and he's like, "Oh, I saw like some a UFO fly into the Hayward Hills." And kind of one of the friends um is like, "Oh, I saw it too," but like kind of trying to make fun of him, like they weren't
mm,
believing him. So,
mm,
um yeah, he knew then that yeah, he wasn't gonna his friends didn't believe him.
mm,
And then the friend he was with didn't want to talk about it like ever again. Um
And
So that
they
friend
weren't
just,
friends after that.
I don't know about that. I think, yeah, I don't remember what he said, but I think they were still friends, but just the
Oh.
friend never wanted to talk about that. Um, and then he may have told his mom too, but the mom didn't believe him. Um, and yeah, I think like after that incident, he had other strange experiences like throughout his childhood. Um, and 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 then he like heard stories from maybe his grandpa, like his grandpa could have like experienced weird things too. But anyways, like that whole incident kind of sparked his interest in ufology. Um, and yeah, I think like he's even like written a book now and he's gone on to like interview other people. So he's like very involved in the field.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
You don't think from his like experiencing other weird things and also his grandfather, it maybe doesn't point to like just mental stuff more.
Mm, I don't know. It's like
I don't know. It's hard. Like I'm thinking if I myself experienced this and then like other people didn't believe me, everybody didn't believe me, that would be pretty difficult, you know.
yeah. But I thought like he wasn't alone though. So like his friend was there and kind of confirmed what they both saw, but just that the friend never wanted to speak about it like
But I
anymore.
just want
Yeah.
I guess I question that too since the friend never spoke about it again. Maybe the friend was sort of freaked out by his, by what he says he experienced and just tried to avoid that. It's like you have difficult people in your life. Sometimes you just try to avoid things with them because you know they're going to go off on a rant or something. So, like, I kind of wish we had, like, you know, some kind of vetting or like the other friend was there or something like that. It's just hard to know in this complex, big society, uh, um, who's valid, like who's kind of telling the truth. But yeah, I just think, yeah, if I'm someone who experienced that myself, it's like, am I psychotic? Did I have a psychotic moment? Because that happens too. About one in every 100 people has like a psychotic break at some point, and they experience something that was only in their mind. Uh, yeah, it's just hard to know, but yeah, I just try to maintain healthy skepticism. Strange things that, like everything that we experience through our mind, right? Like whether uh, things are happening in real life, we only know about it because our our sense data is processed in our brain and body. So whether something happened or not, it happened we know about it only through our brain, right? Like you agree with that, right?
Mm.
So, yeah. But yeah, this stuff is interesting. So that was a presentation that you saw that wasn't like a group. You never went to any of the groups where you kind of respected their privacy. You kind of thought you weren't allowed to go into the people who experience stuff, the experiencers.
Yeah. It's like I thought it was, but then when I spoke to one of the guys after, he said it seemed open to everyone.
Mm.
But when I read on the brochure, it said experiencers only group, so
I bet
maybe
like
it
other
was
people
a miscommunication.
just like came in and then people didn't enforce it or something like that.
Yeah.
I could see how I would be curious about that, but I could see how, you know, you would want to be careful. You just don't want people to go in there that don't respect like the experience or are a little too like nosy or something like that. And yeah. But you said the Berkeley or Santa Clara former professor was like he had experienced something at Roswell.
Yeah, so for that one, well, he actually was never directly in that, so like I guess yeah, but so he was like a school teacher in the 60s. Um
Well,
and
that explains it. I'm just kidding.
yeah, he said he was like 24 at the time. And one of his students was this little girl, and I guess her dad was in the military. But one day he
Sorry. So this was in New Mexico or California?
Um, I don't remember what state it
Okay.
was. I don't think it was any of those. I think, but he was a school teacher at some some state, working as a school teacher, and he had this little girl in class, and her dad was in the military. Um, and one day, like after class or something, the little girl came up to him and told him, "Oh, Daddy says I should show you this." And she took out a piece of foil and
Oh, was he like a
she
science teacher or something?
I don't know what kind of teacher he
Because if
was.
he's teaching them Chaucer or something, I don't know why Daddy would want him to see that.
Yeah, but um she took out this piece of foil and he didn't really think nothing of it. But she told him to like crumple it. So he crumpled the foil and then she said, "Watch what happens." And the foil kind of bounced back into shape with no creases or lines or anything. Like, and then she said, "No, crumple it harder." So he crumpled it again. And this time he crumpled it to like the size of a marble and he let it go and it bounced back again, like as if nothing had happened to it. Um, and then, so yeah, he was curious, but he said he still wasn't thinking much of it. Like he figured it just might be some kind of cool material. From from somewhere. Like he said he wasn't like mystified yet. Um but after the little girl told him um like try to stab it with something. So he said he took one of the compasses, like in grade school,
Hmm.
like and he kind of stabbed it
Wait,
and
he
like
took a compass? Oh, right,
yeah,
like okay, yeah.
like yeah. And still like nothing happened to it, like a hole wasn't forming, it didn't seem damaged. uh so then the girl told him like, okay, now try to cut it. And she, at this point he told her like, do you think your dad will be fine if I try to cut it? And she said, yeah, it'll be okay. So he took a pair of scissors and tried to cut through it, but like it wouldn't cut through. It, despite all the stuff he did to it, it would crumpling, nothing happened, no kind of damage. So he said at the time he just thought it was very interesting and that maybe it was some kind of material he didn't know about, but he wasn't like very concerned about it. So he just thanked her and for showing him and like gave it back to her. And that was the end of that interaction. And he actually didn't think about it again until decades later. He said he'd never been a UFO believer. Like he thought it was uh BS and like he he was just skeptical of the whole thing. But he said he still decided to pick up a book on Roswell. And as he was reading the book, he thought he's had thoughts to himself that this was like very silly. He's gonna throw the book away,
Hmm.
because it's just nonsense. Um, until he got to a paragraph describing the UFO materials, like that were the remnants that were
Hmm.
collected. And it was a paragraph kind of describing the exact same material. Like he read that paragraph and it triggered that memory from decades ago when he was a
Hmm.
school teacher.
Hmm.
And the description of the material was just like this square foil, like about maybe this size,
Hmm.
that was like very thin yet indestructible. Um, and it just fit the exact same description of that square foil, the girl had shown him decades ago.
Mm.
And he was just like very shocked um because he hadn't thought about that foil incident like at all. Like it didn't like he thought it was just something cool, but he didn't find
Yeah.
it noteworthy. So at this point, he was very shocked in thinking about that foil again. So he actually, since he was like he actually wrote to several professors, like 50 professors, like across these multiple fields of expertise, like physics, material science, just all kinds of sciences, kind of describing the material, but without, of course, he said he wasn't going to mention UFOs or anything, but
Hmm.
just describing the material to ask them what they thought it could be. And he got some like 50% of the professors told him that they had no idea what could fit the description of what he's describing.
Hmm.
And then the other half kind of gave him like a variety of answers for like all of these kinds of materials that
Mm.
it could have been. But when he looked more into them, like their properties didn't exactly fit what he experienced when
Hmm.
that girl showed him the foil. Um, so then he moved on to trying to find that girl again, that he taught decades ago. And um eventually, like I think his I think his daughter helps because she was like a private detective or something.
Hmm.
But eventually, like I think he was able to connect with one of his former students,
Mm.
and she was able to remember like that day too, because I
Hmm.
guess one of his former students told him that the girl she had showed that material to her and all the other classmates,
Mm.
and that it was also like the same kind of description for it, that they were all
Mm.
like she was passing it around to show
Hmm.
her classmates. And yeah, so he got confirmation that it wasn't like he wasn't the only one kind of remembering that.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and that this other former student of
So
his
what did he
remembered
end up
that
doing
too.
or finding out or
Um,
pursuing?
so yeah, I guess that whole thing, like he was skeptical of UFOs and all that.
Mm.
And but then that whole experience with the foil led to his interest in ufology.
Mm.
And he seems to believe he touched like the foil, remnant foil from the
Mm.
crash. Um, he just says that for a while the military like seemed to work on trying to get those pieces back. Um, because supposedly there was like a boy in Arizona that was doing magic tricks with the foil.
Mm.
Um, but they think maybe it could have been obtained by like soldiers kind of taking scraps or whatever.
From
And it just,
Roswell or some
yeah,
crash site.
yeah, and they just kind of got distributed that way. But
Mm.
apparently that boy, like once his magic tricks started, people started noticing, like the military came and took that piece of foil away from him.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, he thinks he seems to believe he actually touched that foil from
Oh,
that.
okay.
So
But
yeah.
that's where his presentation ends. I mean, it's just that.
Um, I don't remember, but I think that was like his main presentation, just talking about that and
Oh, okay.
kind of like his findings from like all the scientists he contacted on letter. There's like such a material that
Mm.
we make nowadays, or that was
Mm.
around in the 60s that could fit the description.
Mm. Did you end up doing the morning what was it? The UFO alien meditation or something like that?
No, I
Yoga?
didn't wake up for those.
Oh, okay. You
Well,
don't know
I
what that
was
was supposed
I
to be.
was I was late by like 5 minutes, but when I walked in there, like it was, I guess people were supposed to hold hands or something, and I don't, some part of the meditation. But I felt like I walked right in the middle, so I just left.
So you just left because you're
Yeah,
embarrassed?
yeah,
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
who knows what that would have been like. So anyway, so This is your first UFO convention. You think you'll try another one?
Yeah, I think I'll try another one. Um,
Yeah, like I said, I think it would be fun if you went with someone else. I would maybe be willing to go with you, but I don't know. Man, if I'm too much of a skeptic or something, and
mm,
I don't know how interested I'll be. I mean, I'm just interested in this as a phenomenon. I think it's most likely, mostly from the mind, but I still think that's interesting. I mean, I
mm,
think culture is interesting, anthropology is interesting, and like deeply interesting. Like, the 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 various systems of belief or just the experiences that we have and what those could mean. And maybe it could kind of be both. It could kind of be something real and something in the mind. Maybe it's like a like a signal that our unformed antennae are picking up badly and then interpreting in like a strange, way, a strange, bizarre way, but maybe, you know, like I'm both, sort of logical and skeptical and also open-minded and just interested in whatever it is that's going on, whether it's
mm,
all the mind or all physical reality, and whether it's all true, all the things that people say.
mm,
But I do, in the end, I do try, if we're talking about physical truth, I do try to emphasize, rigor and data and most likeliness, in terms of my credulence or
mm,
uh my belief. I'm not going to act or change my life based on something that to me doesn't seem that likely. Like I try to have a proportionate kind of response. Like, and I do try to, I mean, tell me what you think of this. I do try to have the sort of Platonic kind of approach to the mind where I'm monitoring myself. So if there's something that I want to believe, that to me is maybe the most interesting and most important part. If there's some story that I want to believe, like, why is that? And that's maybe it's more important to know why I want to believe that. Like if I detect that within myself, or if I am believing something, or if I'm, defensive or skeptical about like overly skeptical about something, or if I'm getting angry or something, if I'm dismissive. Like to see I try to monitor myself for all that.
mm,
So, I don't know. With me, sometimes just like I think there's an old proverb of like wherever I go in philosophy, on the way back, I meet Plato, you know. And I guess with me, sometimes like a lot of things like just end up with Plato a little bit. But yeah, what do you think about all that? I mean,
mm,
I've asked you before, but I don't quite understand what it is your interest is in this, but you're interested in general in strange and mysterious things, in like both they could be true and also this is entertaining. It's
mm,
kind of like, I mean, I think I've told you you're very open on the sort of uh as a trait, like I think that's something we have in common, but you're a little bit different, like you're a little bit more into this kind of bizarre stuff, this like,
mm,
you know, uh non-mainstream stuff or something like that.
mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's kind of as you describe. I'm just naturally interested. And yeah, I do kind of find it entertaining in a way. And yeah, I don't know. I just kind of find it hard to believe that there's something wrong mentally with every person, or to where like their senses are like tricking them in a way. So I'm kind of skeptical that it's all fake. Like, so um
Yeah.
yeah, but so yeah, yeah, I think yeah, maybe I want to believe it in a way. Um
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
what
I
I was
just find it
thinking. I mean, because we've had whole societies believe like weird and untrue things for, throughout human history. So, I mean, that's a bigger number, so than like the small number of people you're talking about. So, but then it's like maybe you're marshaling that idea because you want to believe. Not that that is a problem either, but like me talking about the Plato thing, maybe that's the interesting thing to talk about. And that's still, yeah, because if you had a different mind, you would say, well, it's all these people, but like 1% of the population has, psychoticism at some point in their life. And there's also motivated reasoning. There's like people trying to gain status or, people fooling themselves. And, the mind itself is fragile. Like people get tired, people do drugs, people drink alcohol, blah, blah, blah. So you could go
Yeah,
either way, I think, on the data. But yeah, that's the interesting
yeah,
part for me is that there's still that question, that
mm,
same question that I'm asking is why do you
yeah,
want to believe, I guess. Even Fox Mulder said that, I
mm,
think, from the X-Files, which I think you haven't watched, right? Which is kind of crazy. But anyway, yeah.
mm,
So the question is, why do you want to believe?
mm. I don't know. Like maybe I just want to believe that there's more mystery to the world and we don't know everything. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'd like to believe there's more to the world than what we can just see or experience on an everyday level.
Yeah, I think that's something I have in common with you too, but you're more like into it and you're more emotional about it, sort of. But yeah, I am kind of into stories about supernatural, about ghosts and things. I don't listen to them very much, but I can see a strong like emotional response that I have to a lot of those types of stories. And yeah, it is important to have, yeah, epistemological uh humility. But I guess also I just think some of the things that are most interesting are like things that are more there's more to dig into, like just things from human history or things with culture. And those things also link to like the supernatural or the mysterious and things, but it's more, yeah, I guess it's more supported by rationality and by data and things. Because like a lot of these stories, it just ends in total mystery, right? Like we just don't know. And then you can like dig further into it and try to find parallels and everything, but really you don't like as opposed to like learning about human evolution or uh biology or astrophysics or something like that, right? There's continuous delving you can do, you know. But maybe there's something about all of these stories that what is it like? Is it just that it's not mainstream or something, or I don't know. I'm still trying to understand it myself. But do you have any more thoughts on this?
Not so far.
Mm. Well, let me know if you do. But is it sort of related to religion in some way, like belief in ghosts and supernatural and
Mhm.
divine entities and things?
Mm. Well, I think depending who you talk on in that field, like it is because there's this common idea that a lot of the stuff, like visitations and stuff in the Bible, might have been like extraterrestrial.
Yeah, I think I linked
Yeah.
you to that Joe Rogan podcast with that UC Davis researcher, uh, who kind of talks like that.
hmm Yeah. So I think that stuff is probably very much linked into religion in a way.
Mm, yeah. Are there any alien movies that you like? I guess
Mm.
most of them have to do with invasions that I can think of.
No, but the English guy I met, he said that there's this movie called Paul or something, and he found it funny.
Mm,
I think it was like I'm not sure if it's an alien movie, but I think it was what he was
mm,
talking about. Yeah.
mm,
But I'll look it up.
mm. Okay.